Chapter 31. You are listening at novelfold.audio. Double blade style, Dragon Fawn. Ada thrust her two swords forward, and charged forward. At the same time, a special dragon-shaped slash was formed, and her two swords were the dragon teeth in the dragon-shaped slash. This is why this move is called Dragon Fawn. When Iji saw this move, his face changed drastically, and he instinctively wanted to dodge. However, as soon as he made a move, the direction of the dragon-shaped slash changed. Iji immediately understood that he could only take this move head-on. He gritted his teeth and thrust the samurai sword in his hand forward. His whole body also sank slightly. Dang! The next second, Ada's two swords stabbed Iji's samurai sword fiercely. Under the powerful impact, Iji retreated all over. His legs left two deep marks on the ground. Unfortunately, he didn't block it in the end. At the last moment, his hands couldn't bear it, and his hands shook. The blade that blocked Ada's two swords also deviated, which caused his defense to be directly broken by Ada. Ada's double swords fiercely pierced into Iji's chest and pierced it. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out of Iji's mouth, and he showed a ferocious smile. The Sea Hunter group will not let you go, you. Hearing this, Ada didn't want to listen to his cruel words before his death, and drew out his double swords directly. Blood gushed out. Iji also fell to the ground with a bang. Ada's face showed a smile, because the crisis of Cook Island was completely over. She also put her heart at ease, so that she could leave without worries. Then, she walked in front of Iji, took the sword in his hand, and then admired it carefully. She had been coveting Nagase Mikoto, one of the 50 good swords, for a long time. She then took another look at Huazhou in her hand. So far, her double swords have become famous swords. This is definitely a proud thing for a double-sword swordsman. As for the Sea Hunter group, she didn't care at all. You know, her captain is a Shichibukai, and her strength has also increased greatly. Who is afraid of whom? At this time, Mach has boarded the ship of the three siblings. This is a small ship like the Sunshine Mary, which is very suitable for Mach's current pirate group with only 2 members. The most important thing is that after a careful inspection, he found that the ship was made of good wood. He was more and more satisfied. Before building his own pirate ship, this ship is definitely a good transition. Mach couldn't help but laugh. These 3 sisters, they specially sent us a ship. Bulu Bulu. Just at this time, Ada came over with a package. The Den Den Mushi in the package kept ringing. The smile on Mach's face became even stronger. It seems that Sengoku can't wait. Sure enough, after the call was connected, Sengoku's voice immediately rang in the Den Den Mushi. Mach, it's been a month, and you are still staying on Cook Island. You don't have much time. If you can't get the goal I gave you within half a month, then the agreement between us will be invalid. At that time, he didn't finish his words, but Mach understood what he meant. This is his letter of allegiance after becoming a Shichibukai. If this is not completed, his position as Shichibukai will naturally be gone. Mach, isn't there a group of reckless slave hunting teams attacking the Cook Island I'm protecting? So, I slowed down, but I've already locked on the target. He can't run away. Zhanghua, that's good. After hanging up the Den Den Mushi, Ada frowned slightly. Captain, half a month is a bit tight. How about, Mach waved his hand, proceed as planned. At the target, we have to wait for Mr. 3 to send a successful message, otherwise, we can't do anything for the time being. Mr. 3. Ada looked surprised. Mach didn't hide it. He's a member of the intelligence organization in my hands. You can get to know him when the time comes. You will inevitably deal with each other in the future. Ada's eyes lit up again. Mach actually had an intelligence organization in his hands, which she never expected. However, the greater the power in Mach's hands, the better it is for her. She was overjoyed. However, she was just a little curious. Why did she have to go with Mr. 3? Isn't he an intelligence agent? The Navy had already told them where the target was. Normally, there was no need. The corners of Mach's mouth rose slightly. The target given to him by Zhanghua was like driving a tiger to swallow a wolf, and his intentions were really sinister. However, for him, it was like sending him a great general. When he learned that the target given to him by Zhanghua was this guy, he woke up laughing several times in his dreams. 10 days later, Mach had arrived at the Magic Triangle Sea, and his target was exactly the one that Moonlight Maria had, the terrifying three-masted sail. However, when Mach entered, his brows furrowed slightly, because the Magic Triangle was full of thick fog. It was impossible to determine the direction. Mach was a little helpless. Trouble. Ada's eyes twitched, and he made the first suggestion since joining the group. Captain, I think the first thing to do after going out is to find a navigator. Mach nodded and agreed deeply. That makes sense. Wait, after we get this place and the goals given by Jean Guo, the navigator will be on the agenda. But now. Mach stretched out his right hand and touched the ubiquitous fog here. Then Ada was surprised to find that Mach's whole person became a little unreal. Then, she saw something that she would never forget in her life. The fog around seemed to be controlled by something and dispersed around. Especially above the head, a ray of sunlight shone in. Captain, what are you doing? Mach smiled softly. I am a superhuman absorption fruit user. No matter what substance I come into contact with, my body will be transformed into that substance. At the same time, I will also have similar fruit abilities. For example, if I absorb iron blocks, I will become a user of the iron fruit. For another example, if I absorb the fog here, I will have the ability of the natural fog fruit. Wouldn't it be easy to control the fog? What? Ada couldn't help but exclaimed, with shock in her eyes. Now she understood that the so-called multiple fruit abilities on Mach's bounty order were completely a misunderstanding of Mach's fruit abilities by the Navy. However, there are actually such devil fruits in this world. Isn't that equivalent to having many abilities? What fire? Light. Magma. Ice. Soil, too many. At this moment, Ada was extremely grateful. Fortunately, I joined the captain's pirate group. With such a devil fruit ability, becoming the 4 emperors, or even the pirate king, isn't it just a matter of time? Doflamingo is nothing. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the horror three-masted ship, Moonlight Maria and his 3 monsters Absalom, Hogback, and Perona all looked up at the sky. Their faces were full of shock. Their horror three-masted ship was parked in the center of the Devil's Triangle, although this location was not covered with fog like other locations. But the fog was also shrouded in fog all year round. Now it has dispersed, and the sun is shining. The sunlight made the entire horror three-masted ship brighter, and it was so bright that they couldn't open their eyes. He. Moonlight Moria laughed strangely. Then there was a bit of confusion on his face. Strange, Unli said that the Devil's Triangle has been shrouded in rain and fog for hundreds of years. How could it suddenly disperse? Hogback nodded. The Devil's Triangle is very similar to the Windless Zone. They are both sea areas with very stable weather. There shouldn't be such a big change. At the end, for some reason, he had a bad premonition. Absalom looked indifferent. Who cares? It doesn't affect us much anyway. What's the matter? Hollow ho. Perona also gave a signature smile, but at this time, she was a little confused. In addition, she was born a little silly, which made her look very cute. Moonlight Moria finally came back to her senses at this time. Turning to Absalom, he said, Absalom, go to the edge of the ship and see if the fog on the sea has also dissipated. Absalom, yes. At the same time, Mach and Ada had arrived at the port of the horror three-masted ship. Ada couldn't help but widen his eyes, with a look of shock on his face. Captain, is this the horror three-masted ship? If it weren't for the fact that she could clearly see the sails of the horror three-masted ship without the fog, she would have begun to doubt Mach's words. No, even now, she was a little self-doubting, suspecting if there was something wrong with her eyes. But Mach nodded, not to mention Ada. Even he was extremely shocked. Although he had watched the anime, he knew that this terrifying three-masted ship was as big as an island. But when he really saw it with his own eyes and came in front of it, only then could he fully appreciate it. It really deserves to be called the terrifying three-masted ship known as the world's largest pirate ship. Suddenly he felt that this terrifying three-masted ship was a good choice as a secret base. When he thought of this, he just wanted to take the knife and leave. Awakening occupied this place, which was a good choice as Robin's intelligence base. What is that? Soon Ada was shocked again because he saw a huge spider. The key is that this spider still has a human upper body. I have to say, it once again subverted her cognition of this world. Rubbish, Mok looked disdainful, because he knew that this was a zombie created by Gecko Mariah. He raised his hand and cut it in two with a knife. At the same time, he felt a little regretful. This Gecko Mariah was once a great pirate who roamed the sea. But now he is useless. But where did this kid come from? How dare he belittle our captain like this? He is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. A figure appeared at the position where Spider-Man just now was. After glancing at the slain Spider-Man, he turned his head and looked at Mok and Ada with a sharp look. However, the moment he saw Ada, he became excited again, both eyes turned into hearts. He obviously had a lustful heart. Then he saw the other party's legs leap into the air with a force, and finally landed steadily in front of Mok and Ada. Absalom is a perverted erotic maniac who often uses his ability to peek at women. He likes weak women rather than strong women, so he often complains about Perona and Sindori. At this time, Mok and Ada also saw the person coming, a long-haired man with gorgeous clothes and a terrifying face. Absalom, one of the 3 monsters. Mok recognized him at a glance, but he hated this guy very much. Because Absalom was a perverted erotic maniac who often used his ability to peep at women. Compared with her, Sanji seemed much simpler. Among all the pirates, among the people that the fans wanted to kill the most. He always ranked second, just below Momonosuke. No, or rather. Before Momonosuke appeared, he was the one who must be killed. He appeared very obscenely and added Robin, and later took advantage of Nami while she was taking a bath. At that time, Nami was naked. He was pressed against the wall like that. If Sanji hadn't arrived in time, this guy would have succeeded. But there is one thing that cannot be ignored. That is, this guy put Nami beauty is all seen, damn. Can you bear this? So Mok put his head close to Ada's ear. This guy is one of the 3 cadres under Kazuki Moria, and he is a superhuman transparent fruit ability user. This guy is a pervert, and he has used this fruit ability to peep at women. Ada's face turned black when he said this. Absalom's eyes had changed. What she hated most in her life was this kind of guy who took advantage of women without any bottom line. Killing intent suddenly arose. Hanesu and Nagasomi Kotetsu's double swords were instantly unsheathed, and the cold light flashed. Double path extreme speed slash. Ada directly entered a high-speed movement state. In the eyes of ordinary people, she seemed to have disappeared out of thin air. Not good. Absalom, who was originally squinting, suddenly felt something was wrong and became alert. But everything was too late. At this time, Ada had appeared behind him. Hanesu and Nagasomi Kotetsu slowly sheathed their swords. Puff. An X-shaped wound appeared on Absalom's chest. Not only was the bone visible, but the huge wound also cut the entire chest into 4 parts. How is it possible? Absalom fell to the ground with a bang, but his eyes were full of disbelief. He couldn't believe that this woman had such strength. After all, he was one of the 3 cadres under the 7 warlords. She couldn't even block a single move. Not only him, but even Ada himself couldn't believe it, turning around in disbelief. Captain, is this guy really one of the 3 cadres under the 7 warlords? You know, she has also encountered cadres under the 7 warlords. For example, Gladius, who ambushed and killed all her companions and almost took her life, although she hated him to the core. But Gladius's strength was unquestionable. Look at the guy in front of him. The 2 are completely different levels. Mok, indeed, but don't compare him with Doflamingo's men. Because they are not on the same level at all. After all, this is only the first half of the Grand Line, while Doflamingo is in the New World. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the same time, Moonlight Mariah's face darkened because he saw a shadow floating back. This meant that the zombie he created was killed. Seeing this, Hogback and Perona's eyes changed. Then they looked at each other and came to a conclusion. There is an intruder. Moonlight Mariah looked at Perona. Go check it out. After that, he added, don't go in person, use your ability. Hula ho ho, Perona laughed her signature laugh and then activated her ability, negative, negative, negative. Ghosts were created one by her, and under her control, they went to the port. On the way, they ran into Mach and Ada who had already landed on the island. Ghost. Ada's eyes were about to pop out. It must be said that in the world of pirates, there are still many people who are afraid of this thing. Brook used his soul to leave his body, but it scared a lot of people, so, it is normal for Ada to have this reaction. So Mach immediately reminded him, Moonlight Moria has 3 cadres, also known as the 3 monsters. The first monster is Absalom, who was just killed by you, and the other 2 monsters are Hogback and Perona. The ghost in front of you was created by Perona, one of the 3 monsters. She is a superhuman ghost fruit ability user. There is such a devil fruit. Ada couldn't help but widen his eyes, with an incredible look on his face, yahohoho, but at this moment, a very special laugh came from behind them. And from the sound of the laugh, it was still running fast. Oh. Mach's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself, how could I forget this guy? Then he laughed and turned to look at Ada. You will see more magical fruit ability users in a while. Ah. Ada looked confused, but she reacted immediately and turned to look behind her. Obviously, she already understood who Mach was referring to. When a running skeleton appeared in her field of vision, she was completely dumbfounded. Okay. She had to admit that those ghosts were nothing. Mach, Brook has died once. Died once? Ada was stunned at first, and even a little puzzled, but looking at Brook's skeleton, he murmured, that's right, it's like this, it's not reasonable if he didn't die. Mach heard it right, and couldn't help laughing. This guy is a superhuman Yomi fruit ability user. After being killed, he can be resurrected once. Ah, this, although she was prepared in her heart, Ada was still shocked. Really, negative. 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 At the same time, the ghosts were getting closer and closer to them, and Mach couldn't help but remind them, Ada, you should pay attention to this side first. Ada turned around and looked at the ghosts floating over again, with a flash of disdain in his eyes, although this devil fruit surprised her. But it was just a surprise. Absalom, who was also one of the 3 monsters under Gecko Moria, didn't take her move before. The strength is too bad, it was a waste of these powerful devil fruits. The superhuman transparent fruit, and this superhuman ghost fruit, are not inferior to the superhuman slippery fruit that I ate. Huazhou and Chongzing Mihu Che drew their swords, then bent their legs slightly, and rushed out fiercely. The target was the ghosts floating over. Swish, just when the 2 sides were about to touch, the 2 swords in their hands swung out, and a few cold rays were drawn in the air. Not good. Ada's face changed drastically, because the few swords she swung, let alone killing them. They didn't hurt these ghosts at all, as if these ghosts had no entity. Her 2 swords passed through the body. The key is that this was too sudden. In addition, her previous arrogant mentality, the strength had long been old. She couldn't even retreat to avoid it, she could only watch helplessly as those ghosts collided with her. However, these ghosts still had no entity and passed through her body. At that moment, she felt all the negative emotions in her heart surge up. It crushed her will and swordsman's heart in an instant. She knelt down directly. I shouldn't live in this world. If there is an afterlife, I would rather be a bird. Yahohoho. At this time, Brook had also come here. Looking at Ada kneeling on the ground, he couldn't help but laugh with gloating. Then he became serious again. Perona's ability is really troublesome. I don't know how many people have been tricked over the years. Negative. 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 At this time, the ghosts turned in a direction and floated towards Mach again. Mach narrowed his eyes. Ghost eyes, overlord color. Ghost energy surged in Mach's body, and his pupils turned purple-red, even like a purple flame. At the same time, overlord color burst out instantly. Ghost energy originally has a similar effect of overlord color to shock people, and it is even stronger after integrating the strange power of the holy sword, combined with overlord color. It is definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, Perona, who was far away in the castle, screamed. You know, she and the ghosts are visually connected. Or maybe they are soul to soul. You can also regard these negative ghosts as part of her soul, so, she not only saw Mach in person, but also felt the shock from Mach. Her already pale face became even paler, a drop of cold sweat oozed out of her forehead. Huff. She took a few deep breaths and barely calmed herself down. Hegemonic hockey? Brooke exclaimed. As an old antique, he saw it at a glance, and his eyes looked different when he looked at Mach. What happened just now? At this time, Ada also recovered from the negative state and stood up immediately, but her face was very ugly at this time. At the same time, she was still very puzzled. Mach chuckled and said, "Just now, that was Perona's negative ghost. It has no entity, and ordinary attacks are ineffective against them. And once they pass through the body, you will fall into the boundless negative state and be slaughtered. If you come alone today, I'm afraid you will die here." Ada's pupils shrank. Mach immediately added, "I didn't remind you on purpose, remember. There are many devil fruit users in the New World, and their abilities are all kinds of strange. You will be hit if you are not careful. So, in the future, even if the person you face is weak, you must do your best. When attacking a power user, the blade must be wrapped with armed color. Remember, remember." Ada nodded carefully after hearing this. It must be said that the negative feeling just now is probably something he will never forget for the rest of his life. I don't want to experience it again. This lesson. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This lesson is really unforgettable. Then, Ada looked at Brooke again. The living skeleton is also a great spectacle. Just now, Ada was kneeling on the ground, and Brooke had not seen Ada's true face. Now Ada has stood up and looked at him, and Brooke was stunned. He has never seen such a beautiful and moving beauty. After coming back to his senses, with a red face, he approached Ada shyly. "Can I see your underwear?" Ada. For a moment, she didn't react. But immediately, a raging fire emerged in her eyes. "Sexy skeleton, die for me." Brooke was kicked out directly. Tsk tisk. Moke couldn't help but laugh strangely, the two idiots of the Straw Hat Pirates, Sanji and Brooke. The former has no bottom line, and the latter is completely a man's curiosity. Harmless, when the opponent is a woman, he will also act mercilessly. Unlike Sanji, he will be weak when he sees a woman. To be honest, Brooke's strength at this time is a bit weak. But no matter how weak he is, he can still reach the level of Doflamingo's senior cadres, and he is much stronger than some of them. The most important thing is that Brooke's potential is still good. The speed of improving his strength is not slow. 2 years later in the original book, his strength is barely acceptable. In addition, he also needs manpower now. In addition, he and Ada are both swordsmen. Isn't it easy to improve Brooke's strength? Beat him up in turns, and I don't believe that his strength can't be improved. After thinking it over and over again, Mach made an invitation. "If I guess correctly, you are here to take back your shadow. How about this, I help you take back your shadow, and you join my pirate group?" Brooke, who was knocked to the ground, stood up immediately. "Yo Roro 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 okay." Brooke has come here many times, and each time ended in failure. Therefore, he knows in his heart that it is almost impossible for him to take back his shadow alone. Ah! Ada was surprised. He really didn't expect that the captain would take in this color skeleton in front of him. "Mach, this guy is a good swordsman. He is only one step away from being a swordsman. After he joins, you teach him well. I think his strength will improve quickly. When the time comes, when we deal with Doflamingo, we will have another fighting force that can be shown off." After these words came out, Kota, who was still a little emotional. He immediately entered the sage mode, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Brooke also became a little different. Yahohohoho. Brooke laughed his signature laugh again, but this time the laugh was a little weak. He instinctively took 2 steps back. Because, Ada's eyes, gave him a not very friendly premonition. Perona in the castle has also come back to her senses, and she can't care about anything else at this time. Run out and release all the zombie generals under Absalom's command. The zombie generals are definitely the strongest in Moonlight Mori's zombie army. So, he is very fast. When Mach, Ada, and Brooke had just arrived at the castle gate, they were already blocking the door. the two leading the group were Ryoma and Captain John. They were the strongest among the zombie generals, but there was one less Jigoro than in the original book. However, these two guys were enough for Brook now. Turning to Kota, he said, the two zombies in front are Ryoma and Captain John. They were both great figures before, and now even though they have been turned into zombies, they still have good strength. It's a good opportunity for Brook to practice, so you watch from the side. After that, he added, as long as you don't die, don't attack. Even if this guy has a broken bone, he can recover by drinking some milk. Brook. Listen, is this what a human says? Hearing this, Ada nodded seriously. Brook, actually, you don't have to be so serious. Moke chuckled, and then said, you guys play here, I'm going to meet Moonlight Maria. As he said that, he turned into a cloud of mist and floated in the air. The next second, the dragon on the opposite side felt his hand loosen. He looked down and saw that his knife was gone. Ada also happened to see this scene. Her eyes lit up, so the captain is interested in his knife. I'm really curious about what kind of knife it is. Then her eyes fell on Captain John. The two people in front of her were both chosen by the captain, and it was said that they were extraordinary figures when they were alive. These two people really use knives. The knife in Lama's hand is a good knife, and the knife in John's hand must not be too bad. So, she asked John. Han also became interested in the double swords in his hand. Although, she couldn't use so many by herself. But they can be used for collection. Who doesn't have a hobby? Mogko Mariah seemed to feel that something was happening, and he actually came out from the center of the castle. He just bumped into Mok, who entered the castle. Both of them were stunned. No one expected that they would suddenly encounter each other. After coming back to his senses, Mok looked at Mogko Mariah and shook his head. This Mogko Mariah was also a figure at the time. 23 years ago, he was only 27 years old, dared to challenge Kaido. Unfortunately, after being defeated by Kaido and losing all his partners, he was directly hit to doubt his life. After that, due to depression, he also doubted his own strength, and only thought about using external objects, so that his own strength continued to decline. He has completely lost his original ambitions, and there is only a fat body. Mogko Mariah's pupils shrank slightly, as a member of the 7 Warlords of the Sea. New members joined the 7 Warlords of the Sea, and they were naturally the first to get the news, so, he recognized Mok right away. That he was not stupid. Mok came without notice, and he definitely had no good intentions. His eyes narrowed, and he sneered, and then asked, what did you do to Absalom? Absalom had not replied yet, and this guy had already broken into the castle and came to him, and he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Hearing this, Mok said lightly, kill him. Moonlight Moria's pupils were shaking, and finally roared, boy, you are looking for death. It must be said that Moonlight Moria was angry. Shadow box. Moonlight Moria turned his shadow into flying bats, and then surrounded Mok with these bat shadows. Mok's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a sneer. The whole person turned into mist and scattered. The next second, at his original position, those bat shadows formed a cube like a black box. If he had reacted a little slower, he would have been trapped immediately. I have to say that Gecko Mariah is still quite good. And his superhuman shadow fruit is also very awesome. What a pity, the dispersed mist regrouped into a human form on the left side of Gecko Mariah. Then his eyes fell on the shadow under Gecko Mariah's feet. Because Gecko Mariah's attacks were basically made of shadows, he looked down at his own shadow, thinking. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This shadow ability doesn't seem to be impossible. Find a chance to try it. Scattered bats. Moglia split his shadow again, forming a large number of bat-shaped shadows. Then all flew towards Mok. Mok looked puzzled. There was no need to use this similar move. It was too cheap. It was completely useless to him. He turned into mist again and successfully avoided all attacks. Then the mist gathered into a human shape on the left side of Moglia, Horn Blade Shadow. Moglia seemed to have expected it long ago and launched an attack instantly. She turned her shadow into a spear and stabbed Mok. In the original work, the attack power of this move was quite strong, and it could even penetrate the offspring of Oz, who was bigger than a giant. this is also one of Mowgli's strongest attacks, however. He is not facing Little Oz of the Whitebeard pirates now, the autumn. Water in Mok's hand instantly came out, and then the hand blade steadily blocked the attack. Moonlight Mariah's pupils shrank when he saw this. He knew that Mok would not be defeated so easily, but he did not expect that his strongest attack was blocked so easily in Mok's hands. It must be said that Mok's strength was far beyond his expectations. Swish, Mok was not a man who would just take a beating without fighting back. Another famous sword, the third-generation Kitetsu, was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed. A horizontal slash burst out, directly hitting Moonlight Mariah. This attack, Mok was determined to win. To be honest, if it was the previous Moonlight Mariah, it would be no problem to dodge. But now Moonlight Mariah is so fat that it is difficult to walk. How could he dodge it? Just as Mok expected, Moonlight Mariah looked at the rapid slash and his face changed drastically. Shadow Warrior, the position where Moonlight Mariah was about to be slashed suddenly turned into a black shadow. When Mok's slash hit the black shadow, it was as if he had hit an illusory, non-substantial existence, and it went straight through the body. It hit the wall of the castle not far away, and the slash immediately cut a cut through the wall. Seeing this, Mok's pupils shrank slightly. He remembered Moonlight Mariah's Shadow Warrior. It can make the shadow exchange positions with his body, and this move can also exchange part of his body with the shadow. That is the move that Moonlight Mariah just played, directly exchanging the abdomen with the shadow. It has to be said that this move is very useful for dodging the opponent's attack. Okay. I underestimated you a little. Mok got serious at this time. As he said this, a lot of fog emanated from Mok's body, and in a blink of an eye, the entire hall was filled with thick fog, which seriously affected Moonlight Mariah's vision. Moonlight Mariah's face suddenly became solemn, because Mok's move was equivalent to destroying his eyes. The current situation is very unfavorable to him. Tsk tisk. But then, in the thick air, Mok's strange laughter sounded. Mariah shrugged his ears, and then shouted, "Horned Knife Shadow." The novel was taken from the Thrall's website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. That he once again turned the shadow into a spear and stabbed towards the place where the sound came from. Swish, just at this moment, a slash from the other side broke through the layers of fog and fiercely slashed on the fat body of Moonlight Mariah. Ah! Mariah couldn't help but screamed in pain. Swish swish swish, Mok kept changing positions in the fog. At the same time, every time he changed his position, he would swing a slash. Slash at Moonlight Mariah from different directions and angles. Ah, Mariah kept screaming in pain, and at the same time roared angrily, "Boy, if you have the guts, come out and face me face to face." Tsk, Mariah, my mist-hidden technique is good, right? Mok laughed proudly. This move, he learned from Zabuza Momochi in Naruto. This guy always likes to use this move, but it has to be said that this move is really cool to abuse people. However, it's just a Moonlight Mariah. Even if he gives up this favorable situation, what's there to fear about a face-to-face duel? Mok waved his knife, and the mist dissipated. Autumn Water was sheathed, holding the Sandai Kitetsu, one sword-style ghost flash. Mok instantly entered high-speed movement and rushed towards Moonlight Mariah. Swish, Mok passed by Moonlight Mariah, and the Sandai Kitetsu in his hand left a trail of blood on Moonlight Mariah's body. But it's not over yet. Mok turned sharply, and the Sandai Kitetsu left another trail of blood on Moonlight Mariah's body. 1, 2, 3. Mok circled Moonlight Mariah, and 13 consecutive knives were used, each of which cut a huge wound on Moonlight Mariah's body. When Mok finished his ghost flash and appeared again, Gecko Mariah was already covered with wounds, and blood stained his entire body red. Gecko Mariah could no longer hold on and half knelt on the ground. His face was horrified, except for 23 years ago, when he faced Kaido, he had never been so powerless. Gecko Mariah knew that he had no way out at this moment. Either he fought to the death, or he resigned himself to his fate and waited for death. Resigning to his fate was impossible, and waiting for death was even more impossible, so, he had to fight. Go big. Go big directly. Shadow Gathering Place. This is Gecko Mariah's strongest move. using the power of the devil fruit to absorb all the shadows he controlled into his body. In the original work, in the last battle, he absorbed the shadows of 1,000 people, making himself bigger and bigger to increase his strength. His destructive power is very terrifying. But this requires great mental control, and he will lose consciousness or run away if his mental power is not enough to support it. To be honest, this move of Gecko Moria is really strong. If his mental strength is not good, his willpower is also not good. In the original work, he lost control after absorbing the shadows of 1,000 people. It was not until Luffy's second gear hit Moria's body several times in a row with rubber rockets, forcing half of the shadows inside to spit out, that he regained consciousness. If this guy had not given up on tempering his own strength and then training his own mental strength. If he used this trick again, he might really be able to fight Kaido, although, this trick has a bit of external force, but it is really strong. However, Mach had no intention of stopping him. Looking at Gecko Moria, who was constantly absorbing shadows and becoming stronger, Mach couldn't help but get excited, muttered, "That's right, after all, he is a Shichibukai." As Gecko Moria continued to absorb shadows, Gecko Moria's body expanded rapidly. In the end, it was as tall as a giant. Even the castle couldn't accommodate him, and a corner was directly broken, but Mach had already left the castle. He clenched his hands tightly, and when Gecko Moria reached his limit, he drew his two swords, double sword style, Avicii Hell. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Double sword style, Avicii Hell. All the ghost energy on Mach's body instantly surged out and presented a phantom of Avicii Hell around him. But Mach seemed to be a ghost standing in Avicii Hell, majestic, ferocious, and contemptuous of everything. Boom. Purple ghost flames ignited on the double swords. Mach slowly crossed Joe Shuei and Sandai Kitetsu in front of him, and then swung back fiercely. A huge X-shaped special slash with blazing ghost flames burst out. The speed was so fast that Moonlight Mariah hadn't even reacted yet. This special attack hit his chest fiercely. A huge X-shaped slash mark appeared immediately, but the strange thing is that although the wound is deep enough to see the bone, but no blood flowed out, and the purple flames seemed to have life, desperately drilling into the wound. Moonlight Mariah let out an extremely tragic roar. The shadow that had just been absorbed in the body was gushing out from the wound like crazy, and Gecko Mariah's body shrank rapidly, and finally returned to its original size. At this time, Gecko Mariah knelt on his knees, and blood kept gushing out of his mouth. He understood. He was defeated, completely defeated, because Mach had just waited for him to reach his limit. Otherwise, Mach would have taken action long ago. The loser has no right to speak. This is the rule of this world. Cough, cough, cough. But I want to ask you one thing, if possible. Let Hogback and Perona go. Cough, cough. Just as he spoke, Gecko Mariah coughed violently, blood gushed out of his mouth, and then he fell to the ground with a bang. So far, one of the 7 warlords of the sea is gone. Mach looked at Gecko Mariah with some emotion. He really didn't expect that before this guy died, he actually cared about Hogback and Perona. Alas! He couldn't help but sigh and whispered, "Since you value your partners so much, I'll give you a favor and I can keep Perona. But the perverted Dr. Hogback should go with you. If he continues to live, I don't know how crazy he will do for his wife Sindulai." Moke was walking towards Ada, Brook and others, and the Den Mushi in his arms rang, "Bulu Bulu." Moke was slightly stunned, and then he couldn't help laughing, because this Den Mushi belongs exclusively to Baroque Works, the only people who can get through to this Den Mushi. Robin, Mr. 1, Mr. 2, and Mr. 3 are the only 4 people, and now the person who is powered on is either Robin or Mr. 2. No matter who it is, it's a good thing. Thinking of this, Mach felt better and answered, "I'm Mr. 0. Mr. 2's voice rang out on the Den Mushi, "Mr. 0, this is Mr. 2, I have arrived at West Asia Island and locked the target." Mach nodded with satisfaction, "Very good, I arrived 2 or 3 days earlier than I expected. Hide yourself and don't let anyone see your true identity." "Mr. 2, don't worry, Mr. 0, I changed my face when I came. And I changed it more than once. Now I have the face of an island resident. I don't even wear a ballet dress, no one will recognize me." Mach was even more satisfied. "Okay. Then you wait there. I'm done here, and I will reach West Asia Island in 3 or 4 days. It has to be said that Mr. Two's ability is simply the best ability to get intelligence. On the ship, Mok had just hung up the den mushy when Ada and Brooke came over with Perona. At this time, Perona saw the body of Moonlight Mariah in the distance. Her pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and she trembled like an earthquake, because in her heart, Moonlight Mariah was an invincible existence. But she didn't expect that he was now a cold corpse. Mok showed a surprised expression. Did it get done so quickly? Ada, then this colored skeleton practiced with Longma and Captain John. For the others, I will do it. Mok nodded after hearing this. This is true. With Ada's strength of awakening the armed colored swordsman, beating these people is like playing. Then his eyes fell on Brooke's body. There were already cracks in the skull, leg bones, and hand bones. Obviously, he was seriously injured. Tsk. It seems that he was tossed around a lot. However, this is good for him, Ada said excitedly. Captain, let's go deal with that target now. Mok nodded. What a coincidence, Mr. Two just called. It's time for us to go. While speaking, he looked at Perona. Ada immediately understood. Captain, although this little girl's own strength is not very, but the fruit ability is really useful. Why not, take it like Brooke? It will be a good fighting force against Doflamingo. Mok looked at Perona, then looked at Ada, a little surprised. She agreed to join. Ada turned to look at Perona. Perona immediately seemed to be stimulated, and nodded repeatedly. I join. Mok's eyes immediately became playful. It seems that Perona suffered a lot at the hands of Ada, and she almost had a psychological shadow. Then he went with the flow. Then it's up to you. From now on, she is our partner. Finally, his eyes fell on Perona, and he said meaningfully, however, if you want to be my partner, your strength is not enough. You have to improve your own strength. Perona, it's the captain. Brooke cast a sympathetic look at Perona. He had experienced it in person and understood what kind of life would be like in the future. It was miserable. 4 days had passed in a blink of an eye. Mok and his crew drove the pirate ship to the port of West Asia Island. Finally arrived, Brooke and Perona. During these 4 days, they were almost beaten by Mok and Ada in turn. It was simply a tragedy on Earth. So, they were more eager to reach West Asia Island than Mok and Ada, but they were also very curious in their hearts. Who did the captain come here for? At this time, Mok took out 2 bounties, Whitebeard 2, Edward Weeble, bounty 480 million Baileys, Miss Barkin, 230 million Baileys. What? Brooke and Perona's eyes almost popped out, because one of them offered a bounty of 33 million berries and the other offered a bounty of 41 million berries. So, for them, whether it was 480 million berries or 230 million berries, they were both invincible. Gurgle, the 2 swallowed subconsciously. At this moment, they understood a problem. They joined the pirate group of a strong man like Mok. Perhaps the enemies they will face in the future are all people of this level. The 2 looked at each other and suddenly felt the desire to become stronger. Because, in such a battle, if you don't have strength, you will die, and they don't want to die, so, they can only keep working hard to become stronger and keep up with the captain and Ada. Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That's right, the target given by Sengoku is Edward Weeble and Miss Barkin. For him, Sengoku is simply giving him a great gift. Captain, at this moment, a man with a wretched face quickly walked over. Captain. Huh? Perona, Brooke, and Ada's eyes all changed, and then they all looked at Mok, as if to say. In our pirate group, there are still such wretched people. Not to mention them, even Mok's mouth twitched a few times. This face is comparable to Kizaru, but he knew who the visitor was, so he got straight to the point. Mr. Two, where are Edward Weeble and Miss Bakine? Mr. Two, Captain, they are staying in a hotel on this island. Mok, then did you find out that they have been on this island for more than half a month? Mr. Two nodded. Then Miss Ba should be looking for a treasure on this island. Treasure? Mok was a little surprised. He was able to rise in this world because of a treasure. Could it be that he can get another one here? He couldn't help but laugh. Do you know what the treasure is? Mr. 2, it seems to be left by a captain named John. John. Moke turned his head to look at Ada and Brooke, because if he remembered correctly, the captain named John was turned into a zombie general by Gecko Moria. He was killed by these two people. This guy's two knives are the collection of the pirate group. Now they are still on the knife rack in the collection room of the pirate ship. At this time, Ada also reacted. He turned back to the pirate ship and took out the two knives. Mock took it and examined it carefully. It seemed that the cloth wrapped around the handles had been changed. It was not the original one, because there were traces of an older one in the subtle details. Interesting. Mock directly pulled off all the cloth on the handles of the two knives, and then Mock found that there was a groove in the middle of the handles that was half the thickness of a little fingernail. There was a piece of paper hidden in each groove. Mock immediately took it out, one of which recorded his life experience, and the other recorded the location of the treasure he had hidden before his death. Ada, Perona, Brooke, and Mr. 2 all came over curiously. Then Ada asked with some doubt, "Captain, since these two pieces of paper are here, how did Miss Bakine know?" Moke thought for a while after hearing this. Miss Bakine and Captain John were originally in the same pirate group. Perhaps they had some connection. Or, Miss Bakine got other information from somewhere. Moke was also looking forward to it at this time. Captain John's treasure was the treasure that Buggy the Clown was looking for in the original book. "I think there will be a lot of gains." Then, Moke handed the two knives in his hand to Mr. 2, "Use these two knives to find a way to lure Miss Bakine out." He didn't want to have a big fight in a crowded place. That would affect many innocent people. Mr. 2, it's the captain. Time passed little by little, and the sun had already reached the south direction. Finally, I saw an unusually tall man walking towards this side in the distance. As he kept walking, a short man also appeared in everyone's sight. The tall one had a white crescent-shaped beard that curved upwards like the white beard. He was burly, obese, ugly, with snot always coming out of his nose and thick lips. The short one was an old lady with thick red lips, sunglasses, a cane, wrinkles all over her face, and a leopard print coat. These two people were so distinctive that Mock recognized them at a glance. The people who came were Edward Weeble and Miss Barkin, and Mr. 2 was being held in Edward Weeble's hand. Miss Barkin also saw Mock and his gang clearly at this time. Her eyes fell on Mock, and a trace of solemnity appeared on her face. Looking at Mr. 2, "Did you steal those two knives from their ship?" Mr. 2 nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, yes. I stole them when they went to the island to buy supplies and there was only one person on the ship." Miss Bakine heard this and turned to look at Mock. Her eyes became sharp, and she said sternly, "Captain John." Before she finished her words, Mr. 2 took action. He saw that he took advantage of Weeble's inattention and immediately activated his ability. Wax continued to flow out of his hands, binding Weeble. He immediately ran towards Mock. Miss Bakine was stunned at first, and then furious. She was not stupid. How could he not understand that this was a plot? "Weeble, this guy deceived us. Kill him for Mom." Weeble, who was bound, had not yet recovered from the sudden change, and looked confused and dazed. When he heard Miss Bakine's words, his whole momentum suddenly changed. The powerful force directly shattered the wax that bound him. Finally, he slashed at Mr. 2 who was running, and a very terrifying slash burst out. The target was Mr. 2, the ground was cut open wherever the slash passed, which shows how terrifying the power of this slash was. The Choshui in Mock's hand was instantly unsheathed and swung forward. An equally terrifying slash came up. Successfully blocked a fatal blow for Mr. 2, Mr. 2, who escaped a disaster, couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and even felt a chill rushing from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Now he finally understood why Mr. 0 had repeatedly warned him not to fight him. This strength was totally beyond the ability of a person of his level to resist. Miss Bakine's pupils shrank suddenly, and she had to look at Mock. Because the strength shown by Mock was no less than that of Weeble, and Weeble was her biggest support, Mock couldn't help but smile when he heard it. "I'm here to recognize my relatives." Miss Bakine was confused, but soon Miss Bakine's face changed again, because a lot of mist gushed out of Mock's body, covering all the surroundings. So that she and Weeble couldn't see anything. Weeble even shouted, "Mom, Mom, I can't see anything. Not good. Miss Bakine was really old and wise, and she reacted immediately, Weevil retreat, but before she finished her words, a chill was already at her neck. She understood that someone had put a knife on her neck. Gurgle, Miss Bakine swallowed her saliva. She didn't even know how the other party approached. Bang, the person who came was naturally Mom. At this time, Weevil's observation hockey caught the abnormality and the whole person went into a rampage state. Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing this, Mach raised his leg and kicked Miss Bakine in front of him, then he shouted, Ada, Perona, Brooke, Mr. 2, follow the plan. Ada, Perona, Brooke, and Mr. 2 understood and immediately rushed towards Miss Bakine who was kicked away. Negative ghost. Perona took the lead in launching the attack, and Mach, after they were all far away, waved his hand to remove the mist. Because he was going to face Weevil head-on, he wanted to try it out to see what level of strength he had reached. The previous Moonlight Moria was too bad. He didn't even play well, and this guy fell down. The Weevil in front of him was a good opponent. Weevil first turned his head and looked around. Where's my mother? Where's my mother? Finally, his eyes fell on Mach. Where's my mother? Swish, he raised the huge sword in his hand and slashed directly at Mach. Mach narrowed his eyes, put the autumn water into the scabbard, and inserted it into his waist. Then the whole person turned into the state of the Nika Fruit. He wanted to try to see what level his body had reached at this time, and then crossed his arms above his head. Dang! Weibu's big knife slashed his arms fiercely. Mach immediately felt the terrifying power of Weibu, and his legs were bent directly. The ground under his feet could not withstand such a terrifying force and broke apart. When Kizaru was chasing Weibu, he once sighed that Weibu had the fighting power that was not inferior to that of Whitebeard when he was young. Later, Weibu was taken down by Green Bull, therefore, Mach has always believed that Weibu was strong, but he definitely did not have the fighting power that was not inferior to that of Whitebeard when he was young. As Kizaru said, exaggeration, absolutely. Exaggerated. Otherwise, how could he be taken down by Green Bull? You know, although Green Bull is a general. But he was scared away by red hair, a domineering color from a distance, which can be said to be very cheap. At this time, after personally experiencing the terrifying power of Weevil, Mach finally understood that the fighting power that Kizaru was talking about might refer to the time when Whitebeard did not eat the Tremor-Tremor Fruit and relied on his supernatural power to fight. Dang! And Weevil's knife was still pressing down, and finally Mach's arms were also pressed down. The knife was reborn and slashed on Mach's shoulders. But it did not hurt Mach at all. You know, in this state of the cut/fruit, he is at the level of a famous sword. If you want to break his defense, you must first have the strength to cut off a famous sword with one knife. Weevil is strong, but he is far from reaching this level, huh? Simple. Weevil, seeing this scene, had a bit of doubt in his eyes. Then he became even angrier, put away his knife. Then, he raised the big knife high again. Finally, he slashed at Will again, but this time, his big knife was already wrapped with armed color. Seeing this, Mach's pupils shrank slightly. Armed entanglement. Mach did not dare to be careless, and instantly the armed color wrapped around his whole body. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a black sword. The power on his body has changed. Originally, he went to Gecko Moria to get autumn water, and getting autumn water was for armament hockey. How could he not absorb it? So, he awakened the armament hockey as he wished. And to turn autumn water into a black sword, the armament hockey required is really huge. And this huge amount of armament hockey, all of which was cheap for Mach. At this time, let's not talk about skills, just talk about the quantity of armament hockey. In the entire One Piece world, there are only a handful of people who have passed by him. It is estimated that there are only Hawkeye who turned his famous sword into a black sword, and Garp who conquered the world with a pair of iron fists stronger than him in armament hockey. Dang! Weevil's sword slashed down again, and the power was still so terrifying. However, he successfully resisted the top armament hockey. That's right, he is much stronger than Weevil in armament hockey. Instead, it makes up for a lot of the power gap between the two. Ha! Mach shouted, and the power of his whole body burst out instantly. forcibly pushing Weibel's knife away. Weibel retreated 4 or 5 steps before stopping. It must be said that although Weibel is stupid, he is not stupid at all when fighting. After stabilizing his body, he directly slashed again. Mok was not to be outdone, but this time, he chose to unsheath the sword. He went up to meet it. Dang! The sound of metal hitting each other sounded again, and the terrifying power kept colliding between the two knives, forming waves of strong wind, sweeping around, blowing the clothes on the two people's bodies. This knife, the two people were evenly matched. Ha ha ha. Weibel was excited at this time, and his fighting spirit was high. At the same time, he also understood how much the armed color played in the battle. It is enough to reverse the situation. Now he is eager to learn the skills of armament hockey and domineering hockey. He believes that as long as he learns these two domineering skills, his strength will be further improved. One sword style, Rising Dragon Slash. There are many tall people in the pirate world. At this point, he, who is only 1.85 meters tall, is at a great disadvantage. Therefore, a specially developed move. I saw the ghost energy in my body burst out and turned into a dragon-shaped slash, rushing straight into the sky. Under this powerful blow, Weibel's sword was directly repelled. The sword in his hand was also raised high. At this time, the empty door in front of Weibel's chest was wide open. Swish! Mok jumped up and swung his two swords at the same time, slashing Weibel's chest fiercely. Bang! Under the powerful force, Weibel was directly slashed and flew out, and fell fiercely more than 10 meters away. However, Mok used the back of the knife this time. When Zhangguo notified him, he had already regarded Weibel as his capable general, so how could he really hurt him? Roar! Weibel, who was knocked away, was furious. After turning over, he immediately rushed towards Mok, raised the big knife in his hand high, and then slashed towards Mok with a forceful split. Stop! At this moment, a short old woman came over and stopped him sternly. The big knife in Weibel's hand stopped abruptly, and he looked at the person who came with some surprise. Then he was extremely surprised. Mom. Mok also looked over and saw that the person who came was Miss Bakine. Miss Bakine cast a meaningful look at Mok, and then looked at Weibel. Weibel, it was a misunderstanding just now. This is your big brother Mok. In the future, you have to listen to your big brother like you listen to your mother. Do you understand? Big brother? Weibel turned his head to look at Mok, and he was even more stunned. Mok's face twitched. This name is really amazing. You have to know that Weibel is much bigger than him. You only bully Weibel because he is simple. Otherwise, if he were a human being, he would give you 2 bigger pockets. Chapter 39. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss Bakine's face sank. Why don't you call people Weibel? Weibel immediately said weakly, Mom, don't be angry. Then he called to Mok, Big brother. Yeah. Miss Bakine nodded with satisfaction. Remember, from today on, when Mom is not around, you must listen to Big brother, understand? Weibel nodded, but his few brains still moved. Why is Mom not here? Miss Bakine, I have to go find your father Whitebeard. Don't worry, I will come back to pick you up after I deal with your father. By then, you can recognize your father. Mok, this reason is really damn strong. Aren't you afraid that Whitebeard will come over and punch you? Oh. Weibel nodded as if he understood. Miss Bakine immediately added, Don't worry, Mom will contact you every day with Den Den Mushi. Den Den Mushi? Wei Boer tilted his head, not quite understanding. But, no matter what, it has been decided that Mok is his elder brother. At the Navy headquarters, Major Brano hurried into the office of Admiral Sengoku. Admiral Sengoku, there is urgent information. He handed a piece of information to Sengoku respectfully. Sengoku raised his eyebrows, and the corners of his mouth could not help but rise slightly, revealing a smile. The urgent information at this time should be that Mok has dealt with Wei Boer. But he only read the beginning of the information, and the corners of Sengoku's mouth froze there, and his smile froze there. Then he was furious, slammed the table and stood up, and cursed, asshole. Then he immediately called Mok's Den Den Mushi, and soon the call was connected. I'm Sengoku. Mok's voice on the other side also sounded, Marshal Sengoku. It seems that the Navy's intelligence is really powerful. I just got it done, and you got the news. Sengoku suppressed his anger. I asked you to deal with Weevil, not to take him in as a subordinate. Mach said very calmly, what's the problem? Anyway, from now on, he is no longer a problem for the Navy, right? After saying that, he added, no. It should be said that from this moment on, he is also a combat force in the Navy. Shouldn't you be happy? Sengoku was blocked and couldn't say anything. This statement, from the surface, is not wrong at all. Who is Mach? That's the Shichibukai. The Shichibukai is an ally of the Navy, and now Weevil is his subordinate, which is definitely a good thing for the Navy, but, that's only on the surface. In fact, the Navy does not want the 7 warlords to be too powerful. And this Mach is also one of the strongest among the 7 warlords. Now, add another one, Weevil, who also has the strength of the 7 warlords. It is a little out of control. This is what he absolutely does not want to see. It's just that there are some words and some things. You can do them, but you can't say them openly. So, for a moment, he didn't know how to refute. You can't say that you are my ally, but you can't increase your power. That's too shameless. Moreover, it's useless to say this. Gotcha. Zhangguo was so angry that he hung up the power directly. Zhangguo took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger. Then he picked up the information in his hand and continued to read it. Ada. The reward is over 100 million, skeleton swordsman. Where did he come from? Check, Perona. Parahuman ghost fruit ability user, bounty of more than 40 million, now Ada Weeble, 480 million Baileys. How long has it been? Mach's strength has grown a bit fast. Wait, Perona. Isn't that a crew member of Gecko Moria? If it were an ordinary pirate, this bounty, there really wouldn't be many that he could remember. However, each of the 7 warlords of the sea was carefully selected by him, so he also knew their own strength and the crew members under his command very clearly. This Perona is a crew member of Gecko Moria. His face changed involuntarily. Although Gecko Moria's strength has not improved much, his strength is still not to be underestimated. In addition, he is also a 7 warlords of the sea. The 7 warlords of the sea are the same organization. However, each of the 7 warlords of the sea is unruly. No one will submit to anyone. If they all unite, what will happen? He suddenly raised his head and looked at Major Brano. Immediately, let Xiong go to Moonlight Moria to see what happened there. He didn't believe that Moonlight Moria would send his crew to follow Mach for no reason. Major Lanu's face straightened when he heard this. It's Marshal Zhangguo. Then he immediately retreated and gave orders to Xiong. As soon as he hung up, Mach curled his lips on the other side. Marshal, you have no grace at all. Hollow hollow hollow. Yo ho ho ho. Hearing Mach's words, Perona and Brooke both laughed in their signature style. Mach was attracted by their laughter and looked at them. When he saw them, his face changed. I was careless. Then he immediately gave an order. Miss Bakine, follow me. Ah. Ada, Brooke, Perona, Miss Bakine, Mr. 2, all showed surprised expressions. Especially Mr. 2, because the previous plan was not like this. He should take the opportunity to leave. But he did not ask back, because he knew that Mach had his reasons, so, he immediately followed Mach to the ship. As soon as he got on the ship, Mach immediately said, Perona has shown her face, the Navy must have known about it, and they will definitely send people to Gecko Moria. So, I have to go back once. Now, you become my appearance. Remember, you have to make some noise on this island so that everyone can see me here. Understand? Mr. 2 heard this and immediately understood the seriousness of the matter. After all, the captain is now a Shichibukai, and it is not justifiable to kill another Shichibukai, unless the captain does not want to be this Shichibukai anymore. This matter cannot be exposed. So Mr. 2 nodded immediately. Understood, Captain. After Mach finished his instructions, he absorbed the surrounding air, turned into an airman, and floated in the air. In Mr. 2's eyes, it was as if Mach had disappeared. A few seconds later, Mach was already 100 meters high in the air. He absorbed the sunlight and turned into a shining ability user. Finally, he turned into a beam of light and headed towards the Devil's Delta, because only at the speed of light can it be possible to return to the Terror triple sail before the Navy arrives. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Devil's Delta, the Terror triangle sail. A beam of light descended from the sky and landed in the castle. Not long after, a burly man with a trapezoidal white hat on his head and a book with Bible on the cover appeared out of thin air. Mok, who was observing everything in the castle, couldn't help but shrink his pupils. With a bit of shock, he exclaimed, "Bear." Yes, the man who came was Bartholomew Big Bear. Bartholomew Big Bear, born in the South Sea, was the former king of the Kingdom of Solb. He was called a tyrant by the world, and then joined the Revolutionary Army and became a cadre of the Revolutionary Army for some reason. Later, he became one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Before the big event, he voluntarily was completely transformed by Dr. Vagabank and lost his self-awareness. He became a hired slave of the celestial dragons. After being rescued by Sabo and others, he returned to the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. This is a tragic character, very sympathetic, but he never quite understood why he agreed to turn himself into a cyborg. How unbearable this is. Maybe the two have different ideals and goals, so they can't be substituted. Bear. I don't welcome you here. Mok didn't show up, but was in the castle. Bear looked at the castle guard with some confusion. Flying bats, countless shadow bats flew out of the castle and headed for Bear outside the castle. The speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of Bear. He was about to be covered by it. Swish. Bear's figure disappeared in an instant, and when he appeared again, he was already 7 or 8 meters away. Fuck, teleportation. Mok in the castle was so jealous. It must be said that Bear's parahuman meatball fruit is really a very practical devil fruit, attacking and assisting in one. Once used, a meat pad like a bear's paw will grow in the palm of the hand, which can bounce off anything it touches, even the opponent's blows and the swordsman's slashes. It can also bounce all the pain and fatigue of the target out of the target's body. A red bear paw bubble is formed, which can be transferred to other targets, and other targets will bear all the pain and fatigue of the first target. Xiong had a lot of doubts in his heart, although, at this time, Xiong still had his own thoughts. He did not completely obey the Navy's orders. But he also wanted to find out. Pressure cannon. Xiong chose to attack strongly. He used the fruit ability to hit the atmosphere at high speed, sending out a powerful bear paw-shaped shock wave, heading towards the wall of the castle. Shadow blade. Mok in the castle turned the shadow under his feet into a slash composed of shadows and burst out. Meet the pressure cannon of the bear. Boom. When the two collided with each other, a violent explosion occurred. A strong shock wave swept towards the 4 treasures, blowing the clothes on the bear's body rustling. Interesting. At this moment, Xiong's curiosity was even heavier. Because the strength shown by Moonlight Moria in the castle at this time exceeded his understanding of Moonlight Moria, but this is indeed the ability of the shadow fruit, he can confirm this. Therefore, he did not doubt that the person in the castle was not Moonlight Moria. After all, people can lie, but devil fruits cannot. Then Xiong glanced at the other side of the castle and looked at the marks on the wall. Also, the corner at the center of the high place was broken. It was obvious that a big battle had taken place not long ago. Then Xiong's figure paused, because he saw 2 corpses lying quietly not far away from the corner of his eyes. If he was not mistaken, they should be 2 of the 3 monsters under Moonlight Moria. Okay. With the corpses of these 2 people, the relationship between Moonlight Moria and Mok is self-evident. It must be a fight to the death. At this point, I had a guess in my mind. Muttered, this guy was beaten by Mok and took his anger out on me. Or is he injured, so he is ashamed to see people? Yes, he was beaten by a junior. It's really a shame to see people. Forget it. Xiong moved away in an instant. Anyway, his mission was completed when he saw the 2 bodies. As for why Perona followed Mok, it was no longer important. It was impossible that Gecko Moria used the lives of 2 capable subordinates to stage a drama in order to secretly join forces with Mok. Xiong walked out of the castle after a long time. Then he took a look at the bodies of Absalom and Hogback in the distance. He placed these 2 bodies there on purpose. It was for the people who came to see that as long as they saw these two bodies, the corpse can dispel most of the doubts of the visitor. In addition, the moves he showed that were similar to the shadow ability can conceal this matter with a high probability. Marine Admiral's office, Sengoku was relieved by the report of Shion. There are only 3 crew members under Gecko Mariah, namely Perona, Absalom, and Hogback. With Gecko Mariah's experience, it is absolutely impossible to use the lives of 2 of them to act, muttered. It seems that I think too much. However, Mach needs to be restricted, and the first half of the Grand Line cannot accommodate such people. Let him go to the New World and fight with the guys there. Thinking of this, he already had a plan in his mind. Brew. At this time, the Den Den Mushi on Mach's body rang. Mach was slightly stunned and then immediately answered it. Den Den Mushi immediately changed into Robin. Mr. Zero, I have found the news about Giza's bias. Oh. Mach's eyes lit up, then he immediately asked, where is this guy? Robin, New World Champion Island. Champion Island? Mach showed a puzzled expression. Robin, Champion Island was originally called Jalan Island. This island is where fighters hold fighting competitions. Fighting champions are born here, so gradually the island's name became Champion Island. At this time, he is participating in a fighting competition on Champion Island. Because of this, he will stay on this island for more than half a month. Mach nodded. I know. Good job. Then he added, don't forget Van Oka, and it's better to find a capable navigator for me. Robin, Mr. Zero, don't worry. Van Oka has some news. It won't be long before he can find it. If there is a capable navigator, I will keep an eye on it. After the 2 ended the call, Mach called Ada's Den Den Mushi again. You guys set off now, head for Champion Island. We'll meet there. Maybe we can find a pretty good partner there. Ada's eyes lit up when he heard this. Okay, I'll take people there now.